Hello and welcome to the 11th installment of Kalam Digest. Today is the 15th of October 2024, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague Sam Carl Samre. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Edgar.
Sam, I think both of us, many of us, I guess any human being, were terrified and shocked this week at seeing Palestinians being burnt alive in a hospital. One particularly harrowing image was a Palestinian man hooked up to an IV in a hospital bed, burning alive. This is something that I'm going to have a hard time forgetting, but sort of beyond the just sort of inhuman act that caused it, let's talk about what that was and what that was in retaliation for.
Yes, let's just first mention the man's name. It is out now. The man who was on everyone's screen being burned alive by Israeli bombs. His name is Sha'ban Dalu. He is was a 9-year-old student of computer science in Gaza, and there's an interview online circulating of him when he's talking about them just arriving at this hospital. I think it was him and his mom was in the hospital. They were both burned alive. He talks about this is the fifth time they've been displaced since October 7th, and they just moved to this hospital, and he was, describing the situation for the family, etc. I just think it's kind of important to try to remember
Yeah,
humanize the people. It's it's
absolutely.
um, it's difficult to even share these images, but I guess we have to. But yes, this attack, specific attack, came as a part of a wave of bombings and invasions and attacks, ground attacks in northern Gaza. That's been going on for the last 5, 6 days. According to some commentators and some people on the ground, seems credible. It's actually the worst phase of the genocide so far, the most intense bombings and the most intense killing in Gaza since the start of the war, since October 7th.
Yeah,
And this comes in retaliation. I mean, of course, this isn't officially what they're saying, but it seems clear that this comes in retaliation for what we talked about last time, the fact that Hamas managed to, on the very anniversary on the 7th of October, last week, managed to strike Tel Aviv with a number of rockets. I think one or two people were hurt, but they had at least one impact, which, as you know, clearly it's the human casualties were almost none,
yeah,
but it was extremely embarrassing for the Israeli government and for Netanyahu, who was planning to basically celebrate on that day how they have managed to destroy the capabilities of Hamas, etc. So they retaliated by going back into northern Gaza, full strength, full on, and been killing hundreds of people ever since,
yeah.
including this burning of a tent hospital. Just the fact that it's a tent hospital, I think this all says something. It's like, how come these people are lying in like hospital beds, hooked up to like basic machinery, etc., in tents? Well, because there are no hospitals left, so they're in tents, and then those tents get bombed and those tents burn. It's just a level of
It's yeah,
so many levels of destruction and
yeah.
horror.
I mean, destroying a country's healthcare infrastructure and then bombing the makeshift tent hospitals is just beyond. I
Yeah.
did a video where I just said my spontaneous reaction after seeing that
Yeah.
video. And there was a person that commented, a person that I know to be sort of on the more Zionist side of the divide, and this person said something like, "Yeah, this is terrible, but don't lose sight of the real enemy," um,
Yeah.
insinuating that it's Hamas's fault, and um, I never believed that, I mean, I never accepted that logic. But at this point, I mean, you cannot burn people alive in hospital beds and say
Yeah.
Hamas made me do it. It's
No,
just
yeah.
it's not an argument that holds up. It's not. You cannot claim that. I mean, Israel pulled the trigger. Israel is responsible. Period.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Even if what they claim is true, that Hamas operatives were there. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I'm pretty certain that Hamas operatives are not like stationing themselves inside a bunch of tents that are functioning
Yeah, of
as a hospital. Why? I mean, it's not even
course,
like,
but even
the whole idea behind them being in hospitals was that the hospitals had good, whatever, like underground facilities or
holes
something.
and yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
this is just
Of course,
beyond like, I mean, and using, as you said, using that argument even, on the 8th of October was,
yeah.
was like,
I mean,
one wrong
philosophically
doesn't justify
incoherent.
another wrong. But like today, it's just
Yeah,
disgusting,
no,
to
no.
be honest.
I mean, the question of whether there were Hamas operatives there or not is wholly irrelevant. You know.
Mm,
Um, but yes, this happened, and it's gonna be stuck in my dreams for a long time to come, in my
mm,
nightmares. That is to say. It's not been a great week for Israel. If you don't count killing lots of civilians as something good, I'm sure some people in Israel would consider that. But at the same time, attacks against Israeli cities and Israeli military bases are increasingly more successful.
yeah,
Obviously, we should bring up the successful Hezbollah attack on the Golani military base, where dozens of people were injured, and at least four 19-year-old Israeli soldiers were killed.
yeah.
What happened there, Sam?
Yeah, well, it's spectacular, I would have to say. I mean, this is also just to talk about, just to compare. This is also a strike of a military facility. This is a military army base, which is being struck. So it's something uh, weird to say that Hezbollah is a lot more, in terms of
Concerned with
precision
civilian
strikes,
life?
obviously superior to Israel. I mean,
Yeah.
not to condone Hezbollah or saying that they never kill civilians or anything, but the most high profile attack of the Israelis is burning a tent hospital, and the most high profile attack of Hezbollah is attacking an actual army base, which is like, of course, is horrible. People are killed, and that's always something,
Yeah.
we can't, that's not a good thing ever, but these are soldiers, on armed excursions.
Yeah, I mean,
And
some might mention the fact that the 12 children killed in Majd al-Shams might have been the most high-profile attack. However, we that's not established that that was Hezbollah.
yeah,
They've not
yeah, I
claimed
was talking
any
about this week, just this week actually. But
just this
yeah,
week. Yeah, I just
you're
wanted to
right, of course,
mention that
I
in case
mean,
we get criticized in the comments. Please continue,
yeah.
Sam.
Yes. Well, so this is the Golani Brigade, which is, I mean, it's one of the most hardcore, let's say, armed troops in Israel. I remember when I was in the West Bank, when we were in Hebron, when they shifted military units who were patrolling Hebron, and when the Golani Brigade came in, it was always like, oh shit, there's going to be a bad couple of months, because they were incredibly violent and aggressive, very a lot of actual settlers serving on this unit, etc. So it's one of the high profile, most kind of, let's say, elite, whatever you might
Mm,
want to interpret that, parts of the Israeli army. So that was a huge embarrassment, again, I would have to say, for the Israeli government. This is, they managed to fly a drone basically halfway to Tel Aviv from Lebanon, and then bomb this base, and said like, four people dead, and it's lost. A number I heard was 67 injured, many of them whom critically. So I mean, this is, it's not just symbolic; it's actually a strike on the military capabilities of Israel.
yeah.
And talking about the where the base is, this is also, as I said, it's halfway to Tel Aviv, so it's also says something, or it is worrying for the Israelis. The fact that Hezbollah can strike this deep into Israel without being intercepted means, where are they going to evacuate to? The whole idea has been to evacuate, the immediate border areas where Hezbollah are it's easiest for them to strike. But if they manage to strike random targets that far south, even if they strike military targets, it means they could strike cities, they could strike residential areas if they wanted to. So yeah, it also puts a lot of pressure again on the Israeli government to do something to stop the
Yeah.
Lebanese
So,
resistance forces from striking back.
so what's the retaliation been like from Israel in Lebanon in terms of sort of saving face for this quite spectacular and unusual attack. And if you can say something about the United Nations forces and how they play into this.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been an intensification of the bombardments, the aerial bombardments and the missile strikes against Lebanon in general. And this is also interesting, I think, for people should notice that for a long time it was, talk about the fact that they were only striking Hezbollah. They were striking the south, which was supposedly all Hezbollah, and Dahia in southern Beirut, which was also supposedly all Hezbollah. But now they're striking indiscriminately. I mean, it's around Tripoli. I mean, I'm sure there are anti-Israeli forces there as well, but this is historically a Sunni Sunni area of the country,
Tripoli,
and
famously all the way in the north of Lebanon.
yeah, exactly. It's all the way in the north, and it's not a Sunni area. It's
It's not a Shia area.
yeah, they're basically it's not a Shia. Yeah, sorry, it's a Sunni area. It's not a
Yeah.
Shia area. So they're striking all over the country, and there are also hundreds of civilians killed per day now, it seems. So it's very, very bloody attacks as well, and seems much more indiscriminate than I'm defending what they were doing 10 days ago, but it seems they're moving in the direction of just doing the Gaza thing, where they're like bombing everything just to
Yeah.
get them. But yeah, that's part of the retaliation. I would say. As again, they don't say it's retaliation, but you can see them stepping up their kind of level of violence when they get embarrassed by counterattacks.
Hmm.
Um, in On the ground, I think it's also interesting that since we last talked, they have not been able to. I mean, the Israelis have not been able to infiltrate Lebanon, as far as we know, at all. Hezbollah says I mean, uh, re- um, they repelled several attacks or several attempts at incursions. We don't know if that's correct. They always claim, very probably exaggerated numbers, tens of people of Israelis killed and a number of tanks destroyed, etc. But it seems clear that they're not being successful, the Israelis, yet in actually, managing to move into to Lebanon on the ground. Two reasons for this. They've been, probably had problems striking out or defeating Hezbollah, but also the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, the UNFIL, are still on the ground. These are the peacekeeping forces on the ground, which is might seem absurd to people. It's like there's a war going on, but in the middle of that war, there's a peacekeeping force.
Yeah.
Uh, Part of that is it's not as weird as it sounds. This was the case also in Bosnia, of course, in the 90s. Peacekeeping forces try to keep certain safe zones to make sure that civilians have somewhere to go. They also try to kind of de-escalate certain situations, even though, of course, they know that there's a war going on.
Yeah.
But so what's happened there is that Israel just 2 days ago, I think, demanded that they should withdraw from Lebanon
Yeah.
altogether, or just leave Lebanon, because he said like we need to be
After,
allowed to just fight this out.
after
And
several of them had been wounded from Israeli fire.
yes, I mean Israel has wounded several UN personnel, armed personnel, and Hezbollah has also claimed that the Israelis have been hiding, or using the UN forces as human shields. It's a very, very complicated both propaganda and actual on the ground um,
It's a nutty claim.
war game going on here. It's back and forth. But so what happened with that is I probably, Israel thought that they would accept that and just withdraw, to
Yeah.
save, to make sure that they're not hurt. But both France and Spain, who are major sponsors of this force, together with I think Ireland is one of the major other
Mm.
forces or
Yeah.
countries behind it, have just flat out refused that. Said like the UNFIL is staying, and we will not accept any attacks or interference with their work. Which I would say is, I mean, it's a huge issue for
Yeah.
Israel, because if they kill even a single UN soldier, that's extremely problematic,
Yeah.
and will have a hard time avoiding that if they're going to do like indiscriminate all-out war in southern Lebanon. And also the fact that Spain has been critical of the current government of Sanchez is
Yeah.
clearly one of the best, most outspoken governments of the West, but Macron has, this is former basically you know very strong supporters of Israel now coming out as being like, you have to just stop this.
People are getting fed up with Israel. I think I'm
It
sensing
seems, yeah.
something, not just internationally in terms of international relations and and politics, but I'm sort of sensing just from like people that I speak to, um, the amount of times I've been sort of shocked at people that I consider to be sort of centrist that are not necessarily. I mean, they're not Zionists, but like they're sort of sympathetic to Israel, and they think that all the suffering is bad and stuff like that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
most people. I've heard people like that talk about like this needs to stop. We need military intervention in Israel. You know,
Yeah,
I
no.
think this behavior can only go so far. Which maybe brings us to our last point about the US and Iran and the sort of how this is all playing into the US elections, which is, I mean, let's remind ourselves, less than a month away. And sort of Iran reaching out to the US. What is going on with that sort of diplomatic constellation?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about these elections as if, like, at some point in the future there will be elections in the U.S. This will
In
play into
corner.
that, but now it's like it's 20 days ago or away. I mean, I was surprised as well. I was like, isn't it December or something? Like, no, it's
Yeah, yeah,
5th of November. Yeah,
literally
it's just
soon.
it's less than a month away.
Yeah,
So yeah, so the ongoing discussion is, of course, when will Israel strike Iran as retaliation for the retaliation that Iran
yeah, yeah,
meted out a couple of weeks ago now. As we talked about last time, they've already been I mean, it's clear that this is very slow to be Israel. If it had been, just up to them, they would have struck like 2 days after Iran.
yeah,
They just set something up and just hit them.
yeah,
But so I think we've been very, let's say, we haven't had much faith in the Biden administration's ability to do anything in this conflict, and I would say we've been right in that. But I I sense that the only reason that this is actually dragging out is that the US has been seriously, threatening them with repercussions if they would
yeah.
go.
Must be.
That's the only way that they would be doing this so slowly. So I think what's interesting is there have been leaks now from talks between Biden and Netanyahu, held 2 days ago, I think, where the direct quote, I'm not sure if this is a Netanyahu quote or a quote of a quote, but anyway, it's quote, listening to the opinions, they will be listening to the opinions of the US administration, but we will make our final decisions based on Israel's national interest. Which, if we read that in diplomacy lingo, it's pretty
Uh,
harsh. And it's basically saying like, yeah, sure, we listen to you, but we do whatever we want.
yeah.
So
True.
they're like making it sounds kind of nice perhaps to a normal person, being like, oh, we're listening to
Yeah,
everyone, but
no, no, no. It's more like
they're just saying like,
as per my last email. Fuck you.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But anyway, so what they have been saying as well is though that they are not going to attack oil installations nor nuclear sites, which is, basically just saying, the Western world has been saying like do whatever you want, but don't threaten, the supply of oil because that will bring our economies
Yep.
into a crisis, into a
Especially
top,
before the U.S. election.
cynicism. And the US elections, as we mentioned last time, I mean, an economic crisis, even if it's very, temporary based on just oil prices
Yeah,
going up, would be a catastrophe for Biden
for
and the
sure.
Democratic Party,
Absolutely.
and would mean Harris would not be elected. As we talked about, it's not, I mean, everyone knows Israel wants Trump. It's both
Yeah.
the population. I think it's something like it's the most pro-Trump country in the world outside the US. It used to be Georgia and Israel, but I think Georgia has fallen behind somewhat. So now Israel is the top contender for most Trump country.
Jesus
I think it was
Christ.
something like 22% were like pro-Harris and 67 were like pro-Trump.
Wow.
You know,
Well,
also as kind of an indicator of how big is the quote unquote peace camp in Israel. What I would say it's hardly any bigger than 22% then at least. Whoever wants Trump for president isn't
yeah,
looking to have like de-escalation. But yeah, let's
yeah. We'll
Well,
follow.
I
Listen,
mean,
Sam.
looking at that, is Netanyahu has always also said explicitly that he's not going to interfere in the elections, that he will not use the strikes to kind of affect the outcome of the elections. Let's see if that's true, but
Yeah,
um,
he's
that's
still
that.
launching. Um,
Also, I
Sam.
think just one more fascinating quote from that leak, which
Uh,
is that supposedly they're claiming that they will quote unquote wrap up the operations in Lebanon in the coming weeks.
hmm.
So what does that mean? Either it means they are just kind of either they won't, but if they will actually do that or they're planning to do that, that means either they are accepting that they've failed miserably at their stated goal of striking basically defeating Hezbollah. Um, but if um, the other option is, of course, that we're looking forward to an incredible escalation in the coming days. That's what's happening right now, and we'll
Yeah,
have a couple of weeks now of all out kind of invasion and war.
yeah,
Um, Either way, it's yeah, we have exciting weeks
yeah.
coming up, quote unquote.
Terrifying and exciting weeks coming up. What a time to be alive, Sam.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for this news wrap, this news digest from Kalam podcast. We will be back next week with hopefully some
live
better
from
news.
Cairo.
We'll be live from Cairo. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Kalam podcast is going to Cairo. Very much look forward to that, Sam.
would
Um,
be great. Live from
we
Hurriya.
live from Cafe Hurriya. Yeah, that would
We
be an
shall.
interesting episode. All right. Until next week, thank you so much, Sam. Call
Thank you
Samra.
so much. Take care. Bye.